Okay, the first thing that we will review is the ordering of the sides of a triangle based on the angle size and, of course, backwards, ordering the angles based on the sides. Well, in question number 1, we have to accept everything that's written at the beginning of the question as given and as true. So the very first thing that they tell us in this problem is that AB is less than BC, which is less than AC. Those are all referring to the sides. So that means AB would be the shortest side. So I like to represent that with one little notch. BC would be the middle side, so I'm going to put 2 notches. And AC would be the longest side. Well, I can see all of these questions, which they're asking me to find one which is false, are all talking about the size of the angle. Well, I'm going to use the sides to decide which angle is the biggest, medium, and smallest. Well, I'm going to start with the smallest angle. And the smallest angle has to be opposite the shortest side. So if AB is the shortest side, the smallest angle is going to be angle C. That's going to be the smallest angle. Well, if BC is the middle side, then the angle opposite BC is going to be angle A. That means angle A is going to be the middle side. And finally, obviously, opposite the longest side is going to be the biggest angle, which is angle B. So basically, you have B, which is greater than A, which is greater than C. So let's see which one of these is false. A is greater than C. Well, we can see that that's true. B is greater than everything, so it's definitely greater than C, so that's also true. B is less than. Well, B isn't less than anything. B is the biggest angle opposite the longest side. So this one is going to be false. We can see that angle A is less than B. A is less than B, just written in a different direction. That's also true. So the answer here would be C. All right, let's take a look at just 2 more problems, one that go in each direction, but don't give us a picture to go by. Here, the given information is in triangle ABC, side AB is 3, side BC is 4, and side AC is 5. What is the largest angle? Well, there's a couple different ways I would teach you to do this. Well, one way, which is always a nice way to go, is to kind of draw yourself a makeshift triangle and put in the letters here and say, well, AB doesn't have to be to scale, but I'm just going to put the right numbers that they gave me. AB is 3, BC is 4, and AC is 5. They say, what is the largest angle? Well, the largest angle has to be opposite the longest side. So if AC is the longest side, the angle opposite that is going to be angle B. And let me show you a little trick as well. When they give me triangle ABC and side AB, I ask myself, what letter is missing? And the letter that's missing is C. That means angle C is opposite AB. BC, I say, well, what letter is missing? It's A. That means angle A is opposite side BC. And AC, which is the longest side here, which is going to be the answer, what letter's missing? B. B is opposite AC. And since these are in order, I can also just do this. B is greater than A, which is greater than C. Little trick. And of course, the opposite problem would be when they give us the angles. So if the measure of angle D is 110, E is 40, and F is 30, what's the shortest side? Well, again, I could see one of my angles is kind of obtuse. So let's say I was just sketching it. I'm just going to sketch a triangle here. Not a great sketch, but I'm going to make my obtuse angle right here just so it makes sense, 110 degrees. And then one of them is say 40 degrees, and the other one is 30. Remember, that makes sense because when you add all three angles, they always add up to 180 degrees. And they're asking me for the shortest side. Well, the 110 is angle D. My 40-degree angle was E, and my 30-degree was F. Well, clearly, angle F is my smallest angle. So I'm going to put my bow and shoot my arrow across, and it's going to hit this side right here. That means side ED has to be my shortest side. Remember, I could also use the same trick. The name of this triangle is DEF. If angle F is my smallest angle, just put the two letters that are missing, and that's DE. That means side DE or ED, right? It doesn't really matter which direction, which letter I put first there. And that is side triangle inequalities, what we just finished, part one, triangle inequalities. Okay, so for homework, your substitute teacher could go over some of the other ones and answer some questions, but let's jump now, or pause the video if you want to go over more of those. But I'm going to go now to part three, which is classification. And of course, it incorporates understanding the sum of the interior angles of a triangle, which we know coming into this class will always equal 180 degrees. And one thing that I would like you to remember about classification is make sure you always know all three angles before you classify. Here, they're only giving me two, 43 degrees and 48 degrees. So I'm not going to classify this triangle until I know my third angle. So quite simply, I'm going to take 48 and 43, and I'm going to add them together, and that gives me 91. And then I'm going to subtract that 91 from 180, which is going to give me 89 degrees as my last angle. Now I'm ready to classify this triangle in two ways. The first way that we learned about is based on the biggest angle, which is 89 degrees. That's still less than 90. That makes this an acute triangle. And because none of them are the same, that means no sides are the same, which means this is also scalene. All right, so we can see the answer here is right there. And then we have this slightly more involved problem, but it's really not that much more involved. So I'm going to separate my three angles. And here I have names for them. Here I didn't have any names. That's why I left that blank. But here they're names, so those are important. So I'm going to put Q, R, S. And I'm going to put the representations in my little table here. Makes things nice and neat. I got X degrees for my Q. I have 8X minus 40 degrees for my R. And I have 2X for my S. I remember my noble truth about all triangles is that they always sum to 180 degrees. So I'm going to add these all up. I get X plus 8X plus 2X, which is 11X. And then there's only one that has a number, so it's going to stay. And that's going to be equal to 180 degrees. Now, with some simple algebra, I could solve for X. I like to transpose, so I'm going to bring my negative 40 to the other side. So my 11X stays, my 180 stays, and I'm going to change the sign of the 40 on the other side. And then I have 11X is equal to 220 degrees. I'm going to divide both sides by 11, and I'm going to get X is equal to 20. Well, once I have my X equal to 20, it's pretty simple to come over back to my table and substitute to figure out what each angle is. Well, Q, quite simply, is going to be 20 degrees. Now, my r is a little bit more common. I'm going to do it down here on the bottom here. So 8x minus 40 is going to be 8 parentheses, substitute my 20 minus 40, which is going to be 160 minus 40, which is going to be equal to 120 degrees. And of course, 2 times x is 2 times 20, which is easy enough to do in our head, which is 40. Now, before I continue, I'm just going to check to make sure this makes sense. And it does, because 20 plus 120 plus 40 equals 180. So that's true. So now I'm ready to classify this triangle. My largest angle is 120. That makes this obtuse. And none of them are the same, which makes it scalene. I say which answer is there. Only one of them is going to be there, and that's the obtuse. And that right there is classification. Now, that's all you had to do for homework. But if you have some time now, we're going to try to go back and do part 2. Part 2, I'm just going to give you some of the basic idea of what this puzzle is. I call part 2 the constraints of the sides of a triangle. Sometimes this is also called the third side rule. And it's just a general rule, something that's true for all triangles. I call it the third side rule because I like to just use 2 sides of a triangle to determine what the third side can or cannot be. There is a general rule. And here's what the general rule says, the third side rule. It says that if we're going to call x here the possible third side of a triangle, we have to assume that we only have 2. That's okay. Don't worry about these for now. I'll explain how we're going to do these in a second. So let's just imagine that x is the possible third side of a triangle. Without too deep of an explanation, which I can give when I come back, I'm just going to tell you what the rule states. The rule says this, that x, the third side of the possible third side of a triangle, has to be less than the sum of the 2 sides that you have given to you. So the sum, of course, means that you're adding them. So if you take any 2 sides of a triangle and you add them, the third side has to be less, not equal to. No, it has to be less than that number. Now, but there's also a rule on the other side that says that third side has to be bigger than the difference, meaning subtraction, of those same 2 sides. Of the same 2 sides. So the third side rule, quite simply, even though a lot of people find this a little complicated, says that the third side of any triangle has to be less than the sum of the 2 that you have, but greater than the difference, not equal to either of those 2. It has to be less than and greater than, not equal to. All right, let's see how that would work in this problem. So the way I do a problem where they give me all 3 sides of a triangle and they're asking me which set of numbers could be the lengths of a triangle, I make pretend that the third number isn't there. So I'm going to kind of cross out this 11 here. I'm just going to make pretend there's a 5 and a 5. And what I'm going to do is for A, I'll do A, say over here. I'm going to take 5 and 5 in this case. And I'm going to put them on top of each other in 2 different places and put my x right down here and do that. Now, the rule says that that third side has to be less than the sum. Okay, I'm going to add them. 5 plus 5 is 10. That means the third side has to be less than 10, but also greater than the difference when I subtract them. So 5 minus 5 is 0. So obviously it has to be bigger than 0. So the third side of that triangle can be a triangle if it's less than 10 and greater than 0. Oh, what number was there? 11. Guess what? 11 is not less than 10. So this cannot be a triangle. So therefore, can't be A. All right. Now I'm going to jump and do this one over here. I'm going to do C right over here. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of, in my mind, cross out the last number. And when I write the numbers here, I always put the bigger number first because I don't want to deal with negatives. So I put 6 over 3, 6 over 3. And remember that x is going to be less than that and greater than that. Well, less than what? The sum, which is 9. Greater than what? The difference, which is 3. So the number that I hid has to be smaller than 9, but bigger than 3. Oh, it's 9. 9 is not less than 9. These are not equal to, less than or equal to. No. So 9 is not less than 9. Therefore, that cannot even be a triangle. Can't be that answer as well. Let's do D. All right, I have 6 and 7. I'm going to make pretend that I'm not looking at the 13. So I'm going to take the 7 over 6, 7 over 6. Remember, I have my third side rule. So I'm going to add them. 7 plus 6 is 13. 7 minus 6 is 1. That third side has to be less than 13 and bigger than 1. It's 13. 13 is not less than 13. This also cannot be. Well, that means it has to be B. But let's look and see why it is B. So I'm going to take B over here, which is my answer. And I'm going to make pretend I'm not looking at the 20. And I'm going to put the 13 over the 12, 13 over the 12. Get my rule ready. I'm going to add 13 plus 12, which is 25. And I'm going to subtract 13 and 12, which is 1. The third side of the triangle that has the sides of 12 and 13 have to be less than 25, but greater than 1. Well, what number do I have here? I have 20. Guess what? 20 is less than 25, and it is greater than 1. Therefore, this can be a triangle. And that is the third side rule. All right, well, why don't you finish those off? Finish off the entire first 3 parts of the worksheet. Should be done by the end of class. If not, for homework, parts 1, 2, and 3. Thank you, and I will see you on Thursday. Have a good day, everybody.